Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We're looking forward to this presentation. This is the second in our series for our Community Climate Action Plan kickoff. So as we're going, we will, I'll go through, but for everybody joining us today, if you want to start at any point to start to put question and answers in the box to all panelists, we'll have a time where we can ask those questions as well. So thanks again for being here today. I'm Megan Anderson. I head up sustainability for the city, and I will introduce our panelists here shortly as well. Today we're celebrating Building Safety Month in partnership with Planning and Development. And this is also part of our series, as I mentioned, for our Community Climate Action Plan kickoff. Today we'll be talking about an important aspect of climate action, which is our energy use in buildings. If this is your first time joining us, please check out our website to learn more about the Community Climate Action Plan. And you can also view the kickoff meeting that we had last month to talk more in depth about the plan overall. So here is our agenda for today. I'll give a quick overview of the Community Climate Action Plan. You'll probably hear me and others say CCAP, that's what we call it for short. Then I'll introduce our panelists individually, and they'll provide a quick overview of their work. And then we'll have a panel discussion, and I'll ask our panelists a few questions. And as mentioned earlier, feel free to start putting questions and answers in the box to all panelists, and we'll get to how many ever of those we can. So to get started, we do have an 80% reduction by 2050 goal that the City Council set for us, and that helped guide our Community Climate Action Plan. So a lot of the things we talk about today, we'll be thinking about our reductions and actions as well. If you think about the Community Climate Action Plan, just quickly wanted to share a little bit about what's in there. This plan is about the objectives in the plan were designed to bring about high impact, to address steep cuts to greenhouse gas emissions, and to address both resiliency and equity as well. So not only are we talking about greenhouse gas emissions, but we want to do it in a way that's equitable and thinking about resilience. We can prioritize our implementation in several ways. We want to think about it for high impact for outcomes, and also in identifying high impact partners that can help us reach the right people to make the most impact happen. The CCAP strategy categories were designed to prioritize action where Raleigh needs to see the deepest emission cuts, which means prioritizing energy use in buildings, transportation and land use strategies, and then we'll talk more about resilience and cross-cutting as well. So as you can see here, these are our top emissions. And as you can see, buildings and energy is our top emissions here in Raleigh. And this includes the energy use in our homes and also the energy use in the buildings that we live, work, and play in. And as you can see, when we look at our modeling for greenhouse gas emissions, energy use is the highest area of reductions that we can see and that we need to see. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here on the next slide and how we can do that. So within our strategies for the Community Climate Action Plan, these are the buckets of where we can see reductions. So we want to think about how to have the most efficient buildings. So the kilowatt hour we never use is the most efficient. For energy supply, the transition that Duke Energy is making to the grid to have cleaner energy choices for us over time, and then renewable energy as well. So when we're thinking about this, we're also, as I mentioned, thinking about equity and resilience. So with that in mind, the impacts of climate change are typically felt most strongly by those that contribute the least to greenhouse gas emissions. So when we think of equity, we think of the how we should implement strategies so that we're able to address potential disparities that exist in our community. We can ask ourselves certain questions as we get started in our implementation strategies about who may be left out of a strategy, who might be negatively affected. Is there something we can do to address impacts to certain populations? So as we chat with our panelists today, we can look forward to hearing our thoughts on how their organizations think about equity in their work and in relation to buildings and energy as well. So as mentioned, resilience is also an important piece of this. And like equity, something we should think about as we implement strategies. Equity and resilience go hand in hand, and here are just two examples of how resilience is important when we think about energy efficiency and renewable energy. So before we turn it over to the panelists, I just wanted to mention a couple things that we have going on that folks can get involved in. We do need volunteers as we're thinking about our urban heat island mapping project. So go to this website and find out more about the project in general. And if you'd like to volunteer to help out, we'd love to see you there. And pretty soon we'll be putting on our Community Climate Action Plan web pages updates to our next set of webinars on the topics of resilience and also in transportation. So be looking out for those soon. All right, so now on to our panelists. First, I want to introduce Daniel Dittman, and I'll read a short bio on each of them and then let them talk for a little bit, and we'll move to our next panelists. So Dan has been working for the state of North Carolina for 12 years, and since March of 2019, he has worked as the Chief Energy Code Consultant. Prior to state employment, Dan worked as a design and energy engineer, preparing design drawings, specifications, audits, calculations, sales support, and contract writing for energy service projects in diverse markets, including public schools, universities, governmental complexes, hospitals, military, commercial and industrial facilities, and managed a portfolio of savings guarantees for the project's post-installation. Dan has an industrial engineering degree from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville and from Oklahoma State University. All right, with that, Dan, I'm going to pass it over to you, and you let me know when you want to go to your next slides.
Okay, thank you. As the Chief Energy Code Consultant, I work for the North Carolina Department of Insurance in the Office of State Fire Marshal. I provide training and interpretation of the Energy Code for code enforcement officials, contractors, building owners, and the general public. I'd also like to mention that our office has a separate division that regulates modular buildings and manufactured housing. Modular buildings or portions of a modular building must meet the Energy Code, while manufactured housing is constructed to federal HUD standards. Both of these building types are a large part of the North Carolina built environment. The adoption process of the North Carolina Building Code, the Energy Code is just one volume of the Building Code, and the Department of Insurance does not write the Building Code, but we act as staff to the Building Code Council, and they are the agency that develops and adopts the code. Any jurisdiction that wishes to require standards above our statewide code must seek and obtain approval from the Building Code Council for items that are governed by the Building Code. The Building Code Council members are appointed positions by the governor. In turn, the chairman of the Building Code Council appoints the members of the various ad hoc committees for the respective code volumes, of which one is the Energy Code. The ad hoc process generally uses model codes, such as the International Code Council's suite of codes, as a base document or as a starting point for creating the North Carolina Code. The base document for the 2024 North Carolina Energy Code is the 2021 International Code. However, it will be amended to meet ad hoc members' negotiated values and language. Public comment is also included during the adoption process. As such, the proposed new code is the best compromise between interested parties. In addition to the state building codes, the energy requirements of buildings can be directly affected by statutes from the North Carolina legislature. The enforcement of the Energy Code is performed by employees of local jurisdictions, or in the case of state-owned buildings, the State Construction Office. Code officials are limited by their board rules and what they can enforce. They can enforce the minimum requirements within the code, but not more. This does not mean a contractor cannot build above code or that a building owner cannot contract for an above code building. That happens all the time. But in the absence of that, such as spec-built homes, the code official cannot enforce more than the minimum code. The codes are structured such that some elements or features are required in every building, but there are also many sections of the code devoted to building elements that are not required in every building, but if installed, there are minimum requirements to be met. For instance, a house does not require a masonry fireplace, but if you install one, we have Chapter 10 in the residential code that has minimum requirements that need to be met. Similarly, Article 625, electrical vehicle charging, and Article 690, solar PV installations in the North Carolina Electric Code have requirements for non-required systems that are becoming increasingly more common. The Energy Code is available for free viewing on the OSMM website. Therefore, if someone has a question as to just what the minimum requirements are, they can view the code and give us a call for interpretations. Megan, can you advance the slide one more right now?
I'm working on it, sorry there.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just keep going here. The next slide is just a screenshot. A somewhat common issue I deal with is misunderstandings of what the code requires versus customer expectations. Some of the trends in the Energy Code in the model code level, the 2021 IECC has a projected increase of 10% efficiency gains over the 2018 International Code and has an option, but not a mandate, for net zero houses and solar ready houses. These high performing options are going to be included in appendices that can be made part of the code if any state adopts it. This is a similar concept to our present HERO code options in Appendix R4. HERO stands for High Efficiency Residential Option. On the commercial side, I see continued language in the model codes for water and air tightness testing of the building envelope and commissioning of building lighting, heating, and cooling systems. These systems must not only be capable of, but actually doing the controlling and reporting of the systems they're supposed to be controlling. Also, there is an increased requirement for submetering of the electric distribution system within a building. When installed, this really empowers the building owner and operator to know how their building is operating. Trends for the North Carolina Energy Code, I don't have a crystal ball to see what exactly the 2024 North Carolina Energy Code will bring, but I don't see any major differences from our 2018 code. However, like the model codes, a general trend I do see in the North Carolina is to have there's the pursuit of even more flexibility in meeting the code via various trade-off methods, such as the energy rating index path. I also expect to see some continued use of higher efficiency options in the appendix that might be able to receive builder incentives by any participating utility or other provider. A note on existing buildings in the Energy Code, the North Carolina Energy Code language in 2012 and prior cycles was quite rigorous in certain situations and had blanket requirements that probably were not thoroughly understood when they were adopted. This could have been a barrier to repurposing existing building stock if it had been sitting empty. However, in 2015, the requirements were rewritten, and as presently written, in many situations, there may be no or virtually no Energy Code requirements. This does not mean that the owner cannot opt for upgrading the building, but these decisions are left to the building owner and his design team. Anyone who has visited one of the local microbreweries has probably noticed this if they repurpose an old warehouse or factory into a microbrewery. So to summarize this, the Energy Code has minimal requirements that must be met. But if there are any questions on what those minimums are, they can be looked up online, and feel free to contact us here at NCDOI OSFM. If you are desiring more than the minimum requirements, that needs to be communicated or contractually agreed to before building, as the code cannot force an improvement after the fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, next we're going to move on to Daniel Pate. So Daniel Pate, as North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association's program manager, Daniel helps develop energy programs that increase the affordability of clean energy for all stakeholders. This includes working with utilities to create innovative customer services that improve standards of living for low to moderate income customers through reducing energy burden. Daniel's tasks include researching utility program designs, producing clean energy educational products, developing analytical tools, and leading funding opportunity proposals. Daniel has a bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a master's degree in environmental studies from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. All right, Daniel, over to you.
Thank you, Megan. Sorry, I'm just bringing up my, my notes here. But it's great to be here and I appreciate City of Raleigh inviting me. And it's really excited to hear about the Community Climate Action Plan, particularly the equity and the resiliency aspects of it. So like Megan said, I'm an energy program manager at the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association. So we're a nonprofit based in Raleigh. We are focused on driving clean energy public policy and market development for clean energy throughout the state. And really, arguably, our bread and butter at the organization is our policy work, with us lobbying for clean energy at the North Carolina General Assembly, and also us intervening at the State Utilities Commission where needed. But we also have some other really great teams at the organization. So I am on the Energy Data Solutions team. So our team is very focused on generating data and insights that inform our organization's strategy. But this information is also shared with energy stakeholders throughout the state. Our team also, like Megan mentioned, works with utilities to help them develop clean energy programs that can reach those non-traditional markets, such as low income. And then particularly as of late, we've been working more with local governments, including the City of Raleigh, to just explore with them on how the data we have can help them with clean energy progress and clean energy objectives that are set forth, and things such as the Community Climate Action Plan. So I'll dive a little bit into the type of data that we have. As you see here on the slide, one of our most robust tools that we have internally is our renewable energy database. So this database contains information about clean energy systems throughout the state. You can get an idea of that information in the slide here that drills down into detailed information. But basically, since every clean energy system installed in North Carolina has to file with the State Utilities Commission, we're able to have this aggregated source of consistent and reliable information that's been very valuable internally and externally. And kind of diving into something else that REDB supports, Megan, if you can go to the next slide, is our local government clean energy report. So we create these with our for our local government members. These are basically a resource that local governments can use to track clean energy progress in their territories. They can see how much solar capacity is in their territories, how much wind, electric vehicles. We have energy efficient certified buildings in here. They can also benchmark with similar towns and cities. They can compare their clean energy progress to what others are doing. And I'll point out that we're working with these local governments to also get an idea of how we can make these reports better and better serve them, and how to better use our data in general. A few other things I'll mention real quick that I feel like are noteworthy for this webinar. Our team has also been working very closely with the North Carolina Weatherization Assistance Program. And if you're not familiar with weatherization, basically it's funding from the Federal Department of Energy. That funding funnels down to the state weatherization programs, and then from the state programs, it goes out to the community action agencies that carry out the actual weatherization work, and they go into the homes and do the energy efficiency work. So this work focuses on reducing energy costs for low-income households by increasing energy efficiency, and thus making their homes healthier and safer places to live. And I'll also point out that these homes are very inefficient, and its residents face very high energy bills, particularly in the COVID era, which has exacerbated energy burden. So specifically, what our team did was we did a pilot program working with the state weatherization program to essentially evaluate the work that these agencies have done. And by that, I mean, give them a good idea of the quantitative impacts of their work, such as kilowatt hours reduced, how many dollars they're saving residents. Because one thing we learned is that, you know, these agency crews and contractors that are doing this work, they know that they have a sense that they're improving the homes, but they don't know exactly by how much. And with this valuable data information that really drills down the qualitative numbers of the impacts, then they can, you know, make a better case for support towards this work. Anyway, I mentioned this because we're exploring with City of Raleigh about an opportunity to basically, you know, serve more homes in their territory, and also serve more homes that can be that can receive weatherization, and in particular, addressing homes that have health and safety issues, which are, you know, significant issues such as a hole in the roof, a hole in the floor that can make them not qualify for weatherization. Also, real quick, I'll mention that our team serves on the Duke Energy Collaborative, and this is a group of stakeholders from throughout the state that work with Duke Energy to identify programs and solutions for low-income customers through energy efficiency programs. You may know Laura Langham. I serve with her on this group. You know, one thing we'd really like to do is work with key local governments, such as City of Raleigh, to educate them on the type of innovative energy efficiency programs that can be offered by a utility, so that they can help us make the case that these types of programs are, you know, it's something they really want to see in their territories, and something they'd like to see their low-income residents have access to. So I believe that's it for now. So I will turn it over back to Megan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. All right, so our last panelist I'm going to read a bio for is Paula Hemmer. I'm sorry, I'm having a little screen trouble. There we go. So Paula Hemmer has a BS in Aerospace Engineering from the University of Cincinnati and an MS in Environmental Engineering from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Paula worked as an aerospace engineer for NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston for 3 years. She began her environmental engineering career as a consultant to private industry, providing site assessments and remediation services for groundwater and soil projects. She switched to air quality in 2000 and worked as a consultant to EPA, state and local agencies, where she focused on cost-benefit analysis for air pollution controls and rules and air emissions inventories. Ms. Hemmer began working for the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, Division of Air Quality in 2005, and most recently functioned as the technical lead for energy efficiency and greenhouse gas issues, supporting a wide variety of projects. Ms. Hemmer was a significant contributor to the North Carolina Clean Energy Plan, the North Carolina Energy Reform Process, and the North Carolina Climate Change Risk Assessment and Resilience Plan. She recently moved to the North Carolina State Energy Office, where she continues her work on energy and the environment. So with that, I'm going to let Paula share her screen for a few slides.
Sorry, I was on mute. Am I sharing at this point?
Not yet, Paula.
Okay. Share. There we go. I couldn't find the button. Here we go. There we go.
Yep, we can see it. If you want to go full screen, we can see it.
Yeah. Whoops. There we go. Let me move you over here. Hi, I'm Paula Hemmer with the State Energy Office, and I'm going to talk about commercial energy use and opportunities for cutting costs and use. Let's see, how do I, there we go. This slide shows where we are today, and this is taken mostly from the Clean Energy Plan, so from the supporting document 1, which is the landscape document, and this shows the energy use from the different sectors: transportation, residential, commercial, and industrial. This gray line is the commercial sector, which starts to grow and then tapers off and then begins growing again. So it's mostly been flat over the last few, last 10 years or so. So this is good news for our state because, as you can see in this other graph to the right, our population and our gross state product has grown much more than our energy use. So this is primarily due to all of the energy efficiency in both building envelope and technologies like lighting and HVAC. So it doesn't like. There we go. So I wanted to show you the actual impact of all this energy efficiency. So I got some data from the Energy Information Administration, which has enormous amounts of information and data for anybody that wants to go mine it. This is life cycle commercial EE program outcomes. And you can see over I limited myself to 2013 because this data set is consistent in how they're reporting. So you can see that we've had, between 3 and 6 million megawatt hours in any given year of electricity savings. And this has caused a lot of reductions in our peak demand, which is where we spend our money on. So anywhere from 300 to close to 100 megawatts of peak energy. And the peak energy, of course, is where businesses spend their most money. So when we can reduce these peak demand hours and these peak demand amounts, that benefits ratepayers instantly. So this is the cost of these programs over time, the customer incentive portion. So the portion that directly benefits you as a customer. So this is how much money that has been used by consumers or ratepayers in the state. So these are directly dollars put into these programs. And then this is the avoided emissions from these projects. So every year we're avoiding 1 million metric tons to 2 million metric tons of carbon emissions, which is a significant amount. And we need to continue that work. So as you can also see, the savings are sort of tapering off as we've implemented all the low-hanging fruit. And we need to find new programs in which to, and new financial incentives to make deeper EE happen in our state. And my message is that you are paying for these programs through your rates, and you should try to participate in these programs so that you are getting the savings as well. And like I mentioned before, the peak rates greatly impact your costs. And so this is my plug for you all to participate in energy efficiency programs that are happening in our state. Let's see. Come on, there we go. So this is just what Duke Energy is doing at this particular time. You need to, the programs change all the time and the incentives change all the time. And if you're not looking at these incentives about every 6 months or so, you could be missing a big opportunity in your businesses. So right now they're doing energy assessments. They've been doing these for a couple years now with Lime Energy. And they're a very hands-on company. They've done a lot of good work. We've worked with them on for specific commercial properties, and including working on convenience stores specifically. That's one area that DEQ has worked with Lime Energy and Duke Energy on reducing their energy use and saving them money, specifically with lighting and refrigeration. So when you get an energy assessment, somebody comes out to your facility, you get and then they take a look at how you're doing your business. You get a list of recommendations. You get a payback period for that, implementing that, anywhere from 2. They don't do really big payback periods. They won't recommend something that's 10, 20 years. They'll stick to the 1 to 3, 5 year range for that payback period. And then they give some rebates for these potential rebates for some of these measures. And that gets to their second program, which is the rebate program, which you can see is currently focused on lighting, HVAC, and commercial equipment. So check back, look into these options for your business. All right, come on, slide. There we go. So if you need more help, DEQ can help in that sense. We have some programs that we help fund, including providing reduced cost energy assessments through NC State University and Waste Reduction Partners. And these programs identify cost-effective EE projects at your facility, and they also quantify any emissions reductions so that you can put those on your sustainability report. So as you can see, the NC State program uses professors and students, and it's operated in the state for a long time. They assist primarily industrial facilities and manufacturing facilities, but they're also starting to get into commercial work as we shift away from manufacturing and more to commercial operations. So I listed the average savings of $55,000 per assessment, and that's probably more leaning toward the industrial sector. And then Waste Reduction Partners is a group of retired engineers that come out to the facility and conduct an energy assessment. And that program has also operated a long time, and they assist smaller operations. They do a lot of work with schools and churches as well. And they've had a long history of program savings, 400,000 megawatts and 1.2 million BTUs, MMBTUs. Let's see. And so this is basically some of the work from the energy efficiency roadmap and where these things are standing. The things that would help you are recommendation 18, which is to support the creation of an NC-based clean an EE and clean energy fund. This would support loans to get to deeper EE measures, like replacing large HVAC systems or doing some building envelope work. And in addition, North Carolina is considering legislation at this time on property assessed clean energy financing. So this is where rather than you investing in a building as a building owner and not knowing when you're going to sell the building or move to another facility, the financing of the EE moves with the property taxes of the building rather than you as an individual. So it removes the risk you have of making that EE and puts it on the owner, the current owner of that building. It also allows you to stretch out over time. I think I have a slide on this. Let's just go to that. This will make it more clear. So, so it allows you to repay those costs over a longer period of time than a traditional loan would. So it can be used for energy efficiency, for clean energy, and for resilience improvements as currently written. Who knows what it will look like when it finally gets out the door. But I think it's a really good opportunity. This is how we need to make change in the state. We've done all the light bulbs already for the most part. If you haven't done light bulbs, do them tomorrow. And so this is a way to help facilitate property owners and commercial businesses to get to the, like I said, the deeper EE that we need to. So, so I'm asking everybody to contact their state representative and tell them that they, are interested in clean energy. I'm in the CPACE program, the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. And so that's where that program is. And I think it could be a real game changer for our state. And that's all I have today. And my new phone number is 984 area code, and that's a real area code now for Raleigh. So if you haven't seen that weird area code, that's what it is. It's the new one for Raleigh.
Thank you so much, Paula, for sharing all that information. Thank you to all the panelists for sharing all that. So now we're going to move into a little bit of a panel discussion. And Paula, if you're able to stop sharing your screen, you can see everybody a little bit better. And a reminder to anybody listening in, if you want to put any questions and answers, please address those to all panelists, and we'll move to asking some of those questions as well here in a minute. So to get started, Daniel Pittman, I wanted to ask you a question first. Can you tell us a little bit more about what trends you've seen in the building sector in recent years from your work?
Anecdotally, on the detached residential buildings, I've seen bigger houses being built and with more sealed attics and sealed crawl spaces. Also larger kitchens, larger kitchen appliances, and larger kitchen exhaust systems. And there's also been a lot of whole house generators being installed, either on new construction or on retrofit. On commercial side, I've seen, look, we've all seen these all over town, is the multifamily housing projects, you know, that everyone has seen. That seems to be the biggest trend I've seen in the past 8 years. And on those, and well, a lot of commercial buildings, the building science aspect of the building envelope seems to be getting embraced more by the design firms, and they're understanding the need to integrate the structural requirements of the building envelope with the comfort, weather resistance, and energy requirements.
Thank you. And I didn't know if Paula or Daniel had any other thoughts on any trends you're seeing around energy use in buildings too in the last few years. You're welcome to join in if you have any thoughts there.
I do not, but I would mention that in the work that I have done in the past, not super recent, but a few years ago, we noticed that companies were getting energy assessments on a periodic basis, I would say every 5 years. So I think that's important for other businesses to know. If you're not having your a rate analysis done by Duke Energy to make sure you're getting appropriate rates, and if you're not, and those energy assessments often come with a rate analysis as well. And if you're not utilizing these energy assessments on an ongoing basis to help identify where you can tighten your building envelope or change how you're using electricity, that I would recommend doing that periodically rather than one and done.
Thank you. And I think on one of your last slides, you showed some of the partners that the state works with. And I just wanted to mention that the city is going to be rolling out a sustainable business toolkit, and we're going to be partnering with the state on some of their programs. And so if you want to sign up for that, you'll be able to use that state program and get some of those resources from those experts to help you figure out how to be more energy efficient there too. So a really good connection point with the state on that. Daniel, feel free to answer a little bit more on that if you'd like to.
Yeah.
Nothing to add. Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay.
the other Daniel.
Oh yeah, and then Daniel, Pate, I had another question for you, but feel free to answer on both. What would you recommend for building owners to engage occupants in energy efficiency? And can you give any examples of a behavior change program that's been successful?
Yeah, so I'll note that I can speak more to the residential sector since that's more of the work that our team does. But, you know, what our organization really emphasizes or can vouch for is the need for, you know, educating the residents on what they can do in their home to be more energy efficient. And in particular, with like the weatherization program I just mentioned, you already have experts, you have, you know, contractors and crews going into the home a lot of the times while the resident is there. So why not, you know, do a demonstration of like, here's how you change out an air filter. Here's how you change the light bulb. And not to say they're not doing that. I think a lot of them are doing that. But, you know, I think that a lot of times there's a gap in what residents know about what they can do to be more energy efficient. I'll point out also something that our organization did where we saw some effect was, you know, as we're working with utilities to help them develop their energy efficiency programs, we sent out a, you know, we were able to use the energy data from the utility. So we helped the utility create these customized energy reports for homes that weren't yet enrolled in the energy efficiency program. And basically we let them know, hey, here's a graph, you know, here is your home, here is the line of an efficient home, and here's the line of a like a low energy use home, just to let them know, you know, kind of hit home that their home is not efficient and they have some services available to them. Anyway, but like I said earlier, you know, I think education is key, and having someone, you know, a contractor or a crew member who's already in the house to help them with that, I think would be huge.
Yeah, I'll mention there's a program that Advanced Energy runs with the city and other partners for affordable housing, and they try to help contractors learn how to build a very, very highly efficient building, and then also work with the residents to be comfortable in their house and do things like that as well. So they've seen some really great results from that program, educating on both sides. So that's been a good example of what you're talking about.
I'll also point out real quick, I saw a question in the chat. For some reason, I'm not able to submit an answer, but someone asked about the income level for low-income residents for Duke Energy programs. I know that the Helping Home Fund is a income qualified program that has some, if you look that up, it has some criteria for joining the program. So I'd look into that, and if I'm able to, I'll try to send the link out.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So Paula, I had a question for you. You talked a lot about different energy efficiency measures. What kinds of low-cost investments can people make in energy efficiency, and where do you think maybe the biggest bang for the buck is? And that could be a business or homeowner, anybody as well.
Well, certainly the lowest hanging fruit is lighting. Parking lot lighting, as well as indoor lighting and task lighting. You can literally drop the lights down for task work, and then you don't need as much wattage. Rather than, if you have a high ceiling, a lot of companies are doing that in more in manufacturing kind of spaces. But lighting is the easiest one. It's like I said, the lowest hanging fruit. The payback tends to be 1 year, maybe 2 at the most. So it's pretty easy to implement those and start saving money right away. But then you get into more of the changing out equipment is also the next thing to do, depending upon what kind of equipment you have at your facility or your house. The HVAC equipment is a pretty big one. Refrigeration is a pretty big one. That you can immediately make an impact, on those appliances that run all the time or on a very regular basis. You can even do some, as a residential homeowner, you can do some small things like you can, to help with peak energy and peak energy rates for everyone, you can join Duke's program where they turn down your air conditioner for a little bit for a couple hours a year, and help with peak rates that way. That's a really simple, easy, free thing to do to sign up for that program. I have no idea how many people have signed up for it. It might be a good homework project for me to know how many users are actually tackling that. But I have literally noticed no change in my home heating or air conditioning as a result of that program. It's so minute that you barely notice it, but it makes a big impact on peak rates on a bad day, when pollution is going to be high as well. So it's a double, you help Charlotte's air pollution and save yourself some money. So that one's very easy. And then that's the reason we've implemented these things like the CPACE program and the Green Bank that Jen Weiss at Duke University is working on, is because you move into these more expensive measures and the payback period is longer. So it's not a couple of years. You move into the 3-year, 5-year payback period with these building envelope issues, changing out windows, putting in insulation. Those are more time consuming and they involve labor. So those are the ones that cost a little more money than just switching out an HVAC. So that's why we need these larger loan programs to help facilitate those deeper cuts. And someone else asked, can you do this on new buildings or just old buildings? The retrofit is always more expensive. So I would say, and I'm sure the building code people would agree, Dan would agree that building the building with energy efficiency is way cheaper than coming back around 10 years later and installing it. So it's always easier to do it up front. Plan for more expensive energy in the future potentially, and build your building to be energy efficient rather than retrofitting.
Thank you, Paula. And Daniel Dittman, I saw you raise your hand. You either took part in that Duke program or did you want to add something else to that as well?
Yeah, I took part of it, and the neat thing is you get a $25 discount usually in July. So what would normally be your biggest bill of the year gets shaved off to be just like the average months of the year. So it's kind of nice.
Thank you. Well, I think right now, I know there's some questions coming in from the public here, and so we wanted to take some time for that. Nicole, can you help us think about which questions we might want to start with here? And you're looking at the panel questions.
Sure. I think this is a good question considering Paula's answer to the last question. Is it more expensive to build green, to build for energy efficiency in new building than not to? And I guess the question that I would add on to that is, does it have to be?
Paula, did you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in that, but I do, like I said before, I mean, I would strongly look into it because, like I said, you know, things don't get cheaper over time; they get more expensive. And building the energy efficiency in upfront is way cheaper than installing it 10 years later. So you need to, you know, look at the payback period, you know, between a low energy efficient unit and a higher energy efficiency unit. And you can look at, you know, the building envelope is the time for in construction to do your building envelope work is then, right? It's the best time to do it. And you know, there's all these, you know, certifications for how energy efficient and sustainable your building is. And you need to look at the costs and the project impact of that. And like I said, look to the future, not just the current electricity rates and the current situation you're in. And, you know, like I said, hopefully maybe some of these loan programs that are coming down the pipe will help allow you to build more green in a way that isn't a risk to you. So I think that's an important thing. If the loan for the energy efficiency or clean energy or resilience that you want to build in follows the building rather than you as a company owner or a homeowner, that will benefit you regardless, you know, of whether you maintain your ownership of the building. So hopefully it's getting cheaper.
Yeah, and we hear a lot more of the developers talk about how it's becoming just more of a standard for them to do something like a LEED certification for their buildings as well. Anybody, the Daniels, anybody have anything to add to that?
This is Dan. I would just like to add, it's like everything else. You have firms that are very experienced in it. For them, it's like Paula mentioned, it's no big deal. They're used to doing it and they can work to your budget. You know, it's not pie in the sky. They know how to meet a budget.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just speak, you know, with you know, to the equity aspect. You know, arguably the homes, the buildings that need like energy efficiency the most are the low income who have the highest energy bills and who aren't able a lot of times to afford the upfront costs. So, you know, at NCSEA, or a lot of the times we're exploring and vouching for the innovative finance programs out there that would allow low income residents to access energy efficiency at no upfront cost. And for some programs, such as Pay As You Save, allow them to have a cash flow positive scenario the whole time. A lot of these programs would have to be offered by the utility. So it's a matter of educating the utility and working with them to make sure they have the tools they need to make these programs more available. But you know, if we're looking at getting energy efficiency into these non-traditional markets, such as low income, it's going to take some, you know, innovative finance approaches to make sure that energy efficiency catches scale.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. And this one, I'm not sure if maybe Daniel wants to answer, but anybody jump in. Someone had asked, does Duke and North Carolina counties and towns allow homeowners to get solar panels? And I know Daniel looks at a lot of that a lot of times.
Yeah, so you can get solar, yes. Duke Energy has a rebate program. However, the residential rebates go super quick, and I know they're offered only at certain times of the year. What I would really recommend if you're, you know, first timer exploring solar, NCSEA has a consumer guide to solar electricity for the North Carolina homeowner. So this is meant for someone who's just, they're just exploring solar for the first time, just to see if it's even feasible for their house and what steps to take. So I would recommend that. Just go to the publications tab of our website, and you'll see it listed as one of the publications. And again, I'll try to send the link, but yeah, I'm just having difficulties using the Q&A.
Thank you. We'll make sure everybody kind of knows where to go for the websites for North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association and a lot of the other resources that everybody shared here as well. And this one might be for Daniel Pittman. So someone's asked about, and this I may not know as much about, you may. I've heard that some states mandate hydronic heating and cooling once you exceed certain size demands. Do you see this requirement making its way to North Carolina? Does using hydronic systems help efficiency and carbon footprint?
First of all, no, I don't see systems being mandated in North Carolina. We haven't done that in the past, and I don't foresee that now. As far as whether it can work or not, certainly, it's in my past lives, too much fan horsepower tends to really creep up in a building and becomes a big part of it. And when you're using hydronic systems, the energy density of the media you're using to take the heating and cooling from your coils is much greater with water. So yeah, those systems tend to be, or certainly can be, much more efficient. But again, we leave that decisions up to the designers and contractors.
Thank you.
That's funny because I grew up in a 1920s home with a steam boiler for steam heat, and it's so funny. What goes around comes around.
Paula, would you mind talking a little bit more about the clean energy plan and how the state, or what kind of things are coming out of the clean energy plan around energy use in buildings that you think would be good for this group to know about?
Well, like I said, the two that I cited were I thought the two most important were the CPACE financing and the Jen Weiss's Clean Energy Fund. I think those will be transformational. I believe that energy efficiency is the first thing you do because you need to reduce your use before you start creating your own energy. So I'm a big proponent of doing energy efficiency prior to doing any kind of solar installations and things like that. It's not as quote unquote sexy to tell your neighbors and coworker or business associates that you're doing energy efficiency rather than slapping on solar panels. But to me, it's the most important part. There's a lot in the clean energy plan that goes beyond just how to increase incentives for solar. We talk a lot about financing, because that's the bottom line. And there's many different mechanisms to make that happen, including competitive procurement processes for Duke Energy, for the investor-owned utilities, Dominion and Duke. So there's a lot more than just putting in a carbon requirement or putting in a mandate for a certain percentage of clean energy. So I think that the plan speaks to all the things that we have in our wheelhouse to change how we use and generate electricity. So everything from rate setting to loans to these policies.
Thank you. Daniel Pate, so we know that technology is constantly changing. Is there an example you can give of a proven technology that was slow to take off because it was expensive or seemed too complicated, but it's more mainstream today?
I would just go back to the pay-as-you-save model, which very much an innovative financing approach that's established in the U.S. And in fact, it's being done at a utility called Roanoke Electric Cooperative in Eastern North Carolina. And like I mentioned earlier, this is allowing low-income residents who wouldn't otherwise be able to get energy efficiency upgrades to get it at no upfront costs, and then they're paying for. There's a charge on the bill to pay back, but it's less than the savings, so they're coming out cash flow positive. So we're helping to kind of educate utilities on that and other stakeholders. So because it almost comes off as like a too good to be true type thing, right? But if we just educate stakeholders and provide utilities the resources they need, then we're really wanting this to catch on and address energy burdens like on a mass scale. And speaking of the clean energy plan, I believe it's also a recommendation in that, maybe to explore it or yeah, so that's something we really push for at NCSEA as part of our mission to make like clean energy more affordable and accessible for all.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of that plan. So yeah, and I would say that with low income, for a lot of the people on this call that may or may not understand that sector, and I know you guys can chime in with me, that some of the problem with addressing low income is that there's multiple problems at the house that have to be addressed prior to doing the energy efficiency work. And I think that's important for the public to know. It's not quite simple. It's not like at your home where you go in and you get a new air conditioner. There's more work that needs to be done to before those things can be done, such as fixing leaky roofs and things like that. So one of the outcomes of the Clean Energy Plan was to try to marry some of the programs that work in different areas of low-income home ownership and the problems they face, and how to start working together to make the change that we need easier to do and quicker for the homeowner and more impactful.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
bringing that up, Paula. That's a huge issue. Health and safety issues are huge, and in our work with the weatherization program, I mean, there's a whole backlog of homes that aren't able to receive weatherization for the very reason that you said. There's major issues that need to be addressed first. So we're exploring ways to address that.
Yeah. I always say, if it were easy, we'd be doing it. Lighting is easy, and we're doing it. These other things are not getting done because they're hard. And that's why we got to push a little harder than maybe some people have time or bandwidth to do, especially during COVID. So.
Well, that was a great point that kind of just gets us all back to climate action and taking action and thinking about what we can do. And I know we're wrapping up on time here, and I just wanted to ask anybody if you had any final thoughts on if you could tell any audience, you're from an individual up to a business owner, something that from your work in your organization to do, just as we leave each other today around this topic, anything you want to share as kind of a last thought on what they might be able to take away to do, today, tomorrow, or long-term planning for what they're doing there. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I do for myself. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say,
no.
For energy efficiency, just keep in mind that the benefits of it are more than emissions reduction. It's also local economic benefits, health benefits are becoming a bigger deal, making the home healthier and safer. And yeah,
avoiding building a new power plant is a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the list goes on. So just being aware and cognizant of the bevy of benefits that could stem from energy efficiency.
Yeah, I've done some work very recently on how much solar we need, and when you combine that was published by Duke University, published the modeling for the clean energy plan for the carbon policies that were enacted or were brought forward by the stakeholders, and we've modified the clean energy standard to include energy efficiency, and the reduction in the amount of solar that you need to build is substantial. So my message to people that want to see solar energy become our next resource is that energy efficiency has to be the first resource prior to building it, or the capital costs and the complexity, because not only do you have to build the energy, you have to transmit it to people, because they do it all out in the eastern part of the state. You have to transmit it to these big energy centers in the middle of the state. And that's going to cost a lot of money. So for every solar plant that we avoid all those transmission costs as well. So it's very magnified. Energy efficiency has got to get done, or we won't be able to afford this new energy future.
Thank you so much. I think we got a very good picture today of energy work coming from this big scale, kind of like what Paula was just talking about, and then down into your individual home and what you're doing as well. So thank you again to all the panelists for all your great knowledge, sharing all your great knowledge with us today, and for the work you're doing towards climate action. And thanks for everybody for joining us today. Please keep checking on the website to learn more, and this will all be posted there as well. So if people didn't catch it, you can catch it later or watch it again and grab all those resources as well. So thank you again, panelists. Really appreciate your time with us here today.